I've always been a curious soul. From tinkering with gadgets to diving into the depths of the internet, there was always something new and exciting to discover. My name is Alex, a 21-year-old college student, majoring in computer science. My life was pretty ordinary. Classes, friends, late-night gaming sessions, and the usual YouTube binges. That's where it all began, on an otherwise mundane Tuesday night. I stumbled upon a YouTube video discussing internet security. It was the comments that caught my eye. One in particular mentioning the dark web, the unseen part of the internet, it read. I had heard about it, of course, but never really paid much attention. It was like a forbidden fruit, lurking in the shadows of cyberspace. My curiosity was piqued. I thought, how bad could it really be? Naive, I know. I decided to take the plunge. I knew the basics. Use a VPN, don't click on suspicious links, and most importantly, use the Tor browser. I downloaded Tor, feeling a mix of excitement and a tinge of fear. Little did I know, this was the beginning of a journey that would shake the very foundation of my reality. As the browser launched, I remember thinking about the stories I'd heard. It's a hub for illegal activities, they said. You'll find things you wish you hadn't, warned others. But there I was, driven by an innocent curiosity, about to delve into the abyss of the internet. The first few clicks were uneventful. It was mostly forums and pages that looked like they hadn't been updated since the early 2000s. But then, I found it. A directory. It was like a gateway to a world I never knew existed. Each link was a portal to something more bizarre and unsettling than the last. I realized then that this was no ordinary browsing session. I was witnessing the dark underbelly of the internet, a place where the rules of the surface web didn't apply, a place where anonymity was both a shield and a weapon. As I clicked through the sites, a sense of unease began to settle in. I kept telling myself it was just curiosity, that I wasn't really doing anything wrong. But deep down, I knew I was treading on dangerous ground. The innocence of my exploration was fading fast, replaced by a realization that some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. That night, I shut down my laptop and tried to sleep. But the images and the possibilities of what lay in the dark web haunted me. I was at the brink of a world far removed from my comfortable, mundane life. Little did I know, this was just the beginning. As days slipped into nights, my initial curiosity morphed into a haunting obsession. The dark web wasn't just a part of the internet. It was a different reality, a place where humanity's darkest desires were not just visible, but celebrated. I, Alex, was drowning in a sea of shock and moral dilemma, yet I couldn't stop myself from diving deeper. I remember the night I stumbled upon a site that chilled me to the bone. It was an auction, but not for antiques or collectibles. Human lives were being traded like commodities. Faces, stripped of dignity and hope, stared back at me from the screen. The brutality of it was overwhelming. But what shook me more was the normalcy with which the bids were placed, as if they were buying furniture rather than human souls. Then came the black market for body parts, a grotesque catalog of human anatomy, priced and displayed with disturbing precision. I felt nauseous, the images burning into my mind. I told myself I was just a spectator, not a participant, but the thin line between curiosity and complicity was blurring. The worst was yet to come. A link led me to a site that seemed straight out of a horror movie. Live experiments on people, broadcast for an audience with a twisted taste for the macabre. The screams, the pleas, the cold clinical commentary of the tormentor. It was all too real, too visceral. I watched frozen in horror as a person's dignity and life were stripped away for entertainment. Sleep eluded me for days. My mind was a whirlpool of horror and shock. I questioned everything: the internet, humanity, myself. How could such evil exist? And worse, how could I? From the safety of my room, watch it unfold. That's when I realized the dark web was more than just a hidden layer of the internet. It was a mirror, reflecting the most depraved parts of human nature, and I had gazed into it long enough to feel its darkness seep into my own soul. I wanted to stop, to forget everything I had seen, but a morbid fascination kept pulling me back. Each click, each new discovery, was a step further away from the innocent curiosity that had led me here. I was losing myself in the unseen depths of the dark web, unaware that the real nightmare was just beginning. The descent into the dark web's rabbit hole was like a slow-burn horror film, where each scene was more terrifying than the last. I had witnessed the unimaginable, the kind of stuff nightmares are made of, but nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for the night when the dark web reached out of the screen and into my life. It started with a flicker on my laptop screen. A brief moment of disconnection, a glitch in the matrix, I thought. But when the screen stabilized, my heart froze. There, amidst the sea of disturbing images and text, was something far more chilling. My own personal information. My name, address, even my social security number flashed on the screen for a fleeting second before disappearing. Panic surged through me. This couldn't be real, could it? But deep down, I knew the truth. I had been exposed. My anonymity, my shield in this dark world, was shattered. The taste of fear is peculiar. It's sharp, metallic, a flavor that overwhelms all senses. That night, I tasted true fear. My phone vibrated with an unknown number, I answered, and an unnerving, distorted voice whispered threats. Each word was a dagger, and with each threat, I felt my sense of security slipping away. The following days were a blur of paranoia and dread. I kept looking over my shoulder, jumping at shadows. The internet, once a sanctuary, became a battlefield. I was no longer a spectator. I was the target. Sleep was elusive, a luxury I couldn't afford. My mind replayed the threats, the exposure of my information, over and over. I tried to rationalize it, to convince myself it was just a scare tactic. But the fear had a grip on me, squeezing tighter with each passing hour. I tried to cover my tracks, to erase my digital footprint. But the dark web is a labyrinth with no clear exit. The more I tried to escape, the deeper I seemed to sink into its depths. The flavor of fear became my constant companion, a reminder of the invisible eyes watching, waiting. I was trapped in a game of cat and mouse, and I was the mouse, scurrying for safety in a world where safety was just an illusion. This was no longer about curiosity or thrill-seeking. It was about survival. And as I sat there, staring at the screen that had become my enemy, I realized the dark web was not just a place. It was a living, breathing entity, feeding on fear and despair. And I had become its latest prey. The line between the virtual and the real had blurred. And I, Alex, found myself trapped in a nightmare that was all too tangible. The dark web, once a distant, shadowy realm, had breached into my everyday life, bringing with it a terror that was insidious and relentless. The threats escalated quickly. It started with cryptic emails filled with details about my daily routines, places I frequented, people I knew. Someone was watching me, tracking my every move. The knowledge that I was being hunted was paralyzing. Trust became a luxury I could no longer afford. Friends, acquaintances, even strangers on the street. Anyone could be the predator lurking in the shadows. I attempted to sever my ties with the dark web, desperately trying to erase my digital footprint. But it was like trying to untangle a web woven with steel threads. Each attempt to protect myself seemed only to draw more attention, more threats. My computer, my phone, every connected device became an enemy, a portal for those hunting me to peer through. Sleep became a distant memory. I jumped at every sound, saw shadows in every corner. The safety of my own home now felt like a prison. The paranoia was suffocating, a constant reminder of the unseen danger that stalked me. One evening, the nightmare manifested physically. I returned home to find my apartment ransacked, personal items strewn across the floor. It was a message, loud and clear. I was vulnerable, and nowhere was safe. The invasion of my private space was a psychological blow that shattered any remaining illusion of security. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. The danger wasn't just online. It had crossed over into the real world. My involvement with the dark web had opened a door that couldn't be closed, inviting a darkness that was now part of my reality. I knew then that I had to fight back, to reclaim my life from the clutches of this unseen enemy. But how do you fight something you can't see? An adversary that hides behind the veil of the internet. I was out of my depth, a pawn in a game where the rules were written by those who thrived in the shadows. As I sat amidst the chaos of my violated home, the taste of fear lingered in my mouth. It was a bitter reminder of my vulnerability, of the price of curiosity. The hunt had begun, and I was the prey, scrambling for survival in a world where the lines between the virtual and the real had become dangerously blurred. The final confrontation was nothing like I had imagined. There was no dramatic showdown, no face-to-face with a masked villain. It was a silent battle, fought in the shadows of the internet and the corners of my own mind. I realized the only way to escape the dark web's grasp was to become smarter, more cautious. I delved into cybersecurity, learning how to mask my digital presence, how to shield my life from prying eyes. It was a race against time and against an enemy that thrived in the world of ones and zeros. Then came the night that changed everything. A knock on my door jolted me awake. Peering through the peephole, I saw a figure cloaked in darkness. My heart pounded as I remembered the threats, the violation of my privacy. But this time, I was ready. I had set up cameras, traps of my own. I called the police, whispering my situation through trembling lips. The figure vanished before the police arrived, but it was a turning point for me. No longer would I cower in fear. I had taken steps to protect myself, to fight back against the shadows. The encounter was a catalyst, igniting a determination within me to reclaim my life. In the following weeks, I became a ghost in the digital world. I learned the art of anonymity, the power of being unseen. My encounters with the dark web had taught me the hard way, but I emerged wiser, more resilient. The final chapter of my dark web saga was not an epic escape or a victorious battle. It was a quiet exit, a strategic retreat from a world that had brought me to the brink of destruction. I left no trace, no sign of my journey into the abyss. But the scars remained, the nights of terror, the sense of being hunted, the paranoia. They left a lasting impact on my psyche. I was safe, but the sense of security was forever altered. The dark web had shown me the depths of human depravity, and that knowledge could not be unseen. As I closed the chapter on this harrowing experience, I realized I had emerged not just a survivor, but a changed person. I had tasted the darkest flavor of fear and come out alive. But the experience had reshaped me, carved a deep understanding of the digital shadows that lurk behind the screens. I was no longer the naive college student who had ventured into the dark web out of curiosity. I was a survivor, hardened by the fires of a hidden war, forever vigilant in a world where the line between the virtual and the real is perilously thin.